Well, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor. So, today it's Tag Tuesday, and fortunately, I have a tag to do today. I was tagged by Book Time with Elvis. Yes, the fantastic Book Time with Elvis. To do the tag, a tag of Book Time with Elvis's own creation, Around the World in 8 T's, an original tag from Book Time with Elvis. So Around the World in 8 T's, every prompt starts with a T. So number 1, theater. Theater. Do you read plays? If so, tell us about one of your favorites. Okay, I don't really read many plays, to tell you the truth. I have a couple favorites. One of the first that came to mind was Hamlet, because Hamlet was the first Shakespeare play that I saw. I saw it and then I read it after that. I really like Hamlet. But probably the real answer would be Medea. This is Euripides, Medea, and other plays. This is an old-timey Penguin Classics here. And I first saw this play probably when I was around 9 or 10 years old. And I saw it performed and it blew my mind. I was told ahead of time that Jason from Jason and the Argonauts was in it. And I loved Jason and the Argonauts. Yeah, I was expecting something like that, and then I got Medea, which is a whole other thing. Yeah, great play, fantastic, blew my mind when I was young, and yeah, I still love it. Euripides, great playwright, fantastic stuff. Medea. So that's my answer to that one. Okay, number 2, travel. Sadly, we can't travel these days, but do you have a favorite travel writer or travel book to take you away on armchair adventures? This was a tough one for me because I don't really read travel writing. I guess I didn't think about that until this question came up, and I thought, I really don't read travel. What's wrong with me? That I don't read travel writing. But so I was struggling for an answer to this, but then I remembered the book that I read when I was traveling. The first time I really went traveling, which was when I went to Europe in 2007 was the first time I went to Europe. And I was traveling from Paris to Switzerland to Italy, and so I spent a long time on the train, and I spent a lot of time on the train and in hotel rooms and things reading this book. Yes, you knew it was Herodotus because it has to be Herodotus. I'm always talking about this guy. But this is The Histories by Herodotus. This was the copy that I read as I was traveling on that particular trip. And this is translated by G.C. Macaulay. And this is just fantastic book. And it sort of counts because Herodotus did travel around to all these places he talks about. So I think it does kind of count. He's traveling in this book, and I was traveling when I read it. So yeah, let's go for Herodotus as the answer to this question. Okay, question number 3. Time. What book took you the longest time to read? Why was that? The book that took me the longest time to read was this one. Les Mis by Victor Hugo. It should be self-explanatory why it took so long. This took so long for a couple of reasons. It's 1,400 pages long, and at the time I was reading this, I was really busy. For some reason, I just didn't have a lot of time. So this sucker took a long time to read. I don't remember how long it took me to read, but I know it took me a long time. But that's okay because I had a great time with this book. I really like this book a lot. It catches some flack, this book, because it has such long meandering digressions that don't seem to have anything to do with anything, and I agree with that. There's some of that going on in this book, but at the same time, it's a fantastic book. I really, really like this book. I'm going to read it again one day. I've actually got to get, obviously, a better copy because this is just a really tore up paperback copy. I was literally carrying this everywhere I went. Yeah. A lot of good memories, actually, now that I'm holding this book. I really had a good time with this. Okay, so that was the answer to that. Number 4, traditional. Fairy tales or nursery rhymes? What are some of your favorites? And what are some you would not think suitable for kids today? Well, there are some people that don't care too much for fairy tales or nursery rhymes. I've heard some bad talk lately about fairy tales and nursery rhymes. Some people just don't get them. But you know what? If stories that are in books like this help children to learn to read, or if it gets them interested in stories, and maybe if they hear them again later on in life, and it takes them back to that magical time of childhood, well, that's no bad thing. So, yeah, fairy tales are all right by me. As for suitable for children, I kind of think the more horrifying and terrifying a fairy tale is, the better it is for kids. So, I didn't pick anything in Grimm's fairy tales because, well, it's just not horrible enough. I'm thinking we need something really awful and terrible to scare those little children. So I'm going to pick a story from, you guessed it, everybody's favorite fairy tale book, The Dark Descent. Yes, The Dark Descent, winner of the World Fantasy Award for being so horrifying. And there's a little thing in here called The New Mother by Lucy Clifford. Let's hear a little about The New Mother. Lucy Clifford was a Victorian writer of children's fantasies. The New Mother is from Anyhow Stories, Moral and Otherwise, 1882. It is a curious example of the oft-noted tendency of Victorian morality to be at odds in an unsettling way with human psychology. Step on a crack, break your mother's back, or step out of line and you will be punished horribly, out of all proportion to the sin, seems to be the moral, familiar from horrid children's rhymes. It represents herein the whole tradition of tales calculated to terrify and horrify children into good behavior through moral allegory. The allegory may be awry, but the horror is real. So yes, I would recommend The New Mother by Lucy Clifford. Find this book and read this story to the littlest child you could find and terrify them, scarring them for life. Yes, that is my choice. Okay, number 5, tasty. Food, glorious food. What are some of your favorite books about food? You know, I don't read too many books about food, so the first thing that came to mind would be cookbooks. And there is one I'm kind of fond of. And of course, it's sort of Lovecrafty. It's the Veganomicon. And I like this book for a couple of reasons. First of all, I am a vegan, so I enjoy the vegan food that is in here because there are a lot of great recipes in here. And it is the Veganomicon, reminiscent of the Necronomicon created by H.P. Lovecraft for his terrifying stories. So yeah, 2 great reasons to like this book. There are some good stuff in here. Okay, number 6, terrible. Who is a truly terrible, nasty, but memorable character that stands out for you? There is a character that stands out for me as a memorable villain, probably the most villainous villain around, and that would be in the in this deathless classic of literature, The Return of Tarzan. In this book is a character called Nicholas Rokoff, who is the most villainy villain that ever caused villainy. He should have a little mustache that he twirls, but he doesn't. He probably should also have a big V on his forehead for villain, but he doesn't really need it because he's just so darn villainous. Yes, Nicholas Rokoff from The Return of Tarzan. I'm sure you've all read Return of Tarzan, so you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that villain was just awful. What a terrible man. He ruined everybody's lives in this book. Don't worry, Tarzan took care of him. So yeah, that's my answer to that one. That was terrible. Truth! Number 7 is truth. The truth is often stranger than fiction, they say. Give us some examples of this from your extensive reading. I thought about this, There are a lot of stories that are stranger than fiction, that are true stories. And I got to thinking about a particular set of stories that made me think, what if your whole life were stranger than fiction? I mean, what if just the experience of living, life itself was just so weird that it was weirder than any story you could pick up? And that made me think of the stories. There were 7 stories that you will find in this book by Oliver Sacks, an anthropologist on Mars. He tells the story of some people with different neurological disorders, and because of that, they experience the world in a very different way than we do, who do not have these same disorders. And yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, and their lives, just because of their set of circumstances, were stranger than fiction. And I highly recommend this book. This is a great book. I'm sure a lot of you have probably read it. But if you haven't, this is a really, really interesting book. A good read about some interesting people. So there's that. And 8. Tag. Make up an 8th prompt directed to those you wish to tag. Please stick to the theme of tea. Okay, so I have to think up a prompt beginning with T. So of course, being me, I'm going to go with terrifying. So terrifying, and this is BookTube. So, what is the most terrifying book you have ever read? What terrified you the most? I've read a lot of scary stuff. You might have noticed that from some of my previous videos. All of my fantastic previous videos. So I've read Arthur Mack and H.P. Lovecraft, Algernon Blackwood. I've read just all kinds of terrifying writers. But what sticks to mind as far as a book that I've actually found frightening was a Stephen King book. It was, and it was this one. It was Pet Sematary. I actually found this really unsettling. I found this really scary, actually. There are parts of this that just made me go, man. I've mentioned before that this is the greatest horror novel I've ever read. I know opinions differ, but for me, this is the perfect horror novel. It's just perfect from beginning to end. It accomplishes perfectly what it sets out to do. It even makes a cat scary. And you can't make cats scary. But somehow this guy made a scary cat in that church. So good job, Stephen King, on that one. So yeah, that was the most terrifying book. So that was my choice for a prompt for number 8. Book Time with Elvis also asked me to tag 8 people. Man, that's a lot of people to tag. Book Time with Elvis. But I will do it. For you, I'll do it. So, here are the 8 booktubers that I'm going to tag. Now, as usual, when I tag somebody, do not feel obligated to do it if you don't feel like it. I know a lot of folks out there in the booktube, they don't like to do tags. It's not their thing. So yeah, don't do it if you don't want to. But people should know about your channel anyway, so here you go. Number 1, attention with an exclamation point. Attention with an exclamation point. His channel is fantastic. And man, when he does a tag, he knocks it out of the park. I've never seen anybody do tags as well as this guy. So, attention, you are tagged. Number 2, the book blather. Yes, the book blather. I love this guy's channel. This guy's channel is fantastic. So, the book blather, I tag you. Number 3, David at David's Book Reviews. Now, David is pretty darn busy with all his different things that he's doing on his channel. So, you know, David, I don't expect you to actually do this. But I'm going to tag you, David, because I like your channel so much. So, David at David's Book Reviews. Number 4, Duncan McCurdy. Duncan McCurdy, I tag you. That's number 4, good old Duncan McCurdy. Number 5, Jay Shea. Jay Shea, this channel is all your fault, Jay Shea. If I hadn't seen your videos, I never would have done this. It's all on you, man. So tag Jay Shea, I tag you. That was tag number 5. Number 6 is knitting, books, etc. Knitting, books, etc. I don't know if you have time to do a tag with all that knitting you do, but knitting, books, etc. tag. So, number 7, Lady Jane Books. Number 7, I tag you, Lady Jane Books. You've got an awful good channel there. I tag you. And number 8, Tome Raider. I tag you, Tome Raider. Actually, Tome Raider, I don't think I've ever seen you do a tag. I'm not sure tags are really your thing. So again, if you don't feel like doing this, don't feel like you have to do it. But boom, I'm tagging you anyway, Tome Raider. So that's the tag. Those are the tags that I tag. And tomorrow we've got another tag because I was tagged twice. And I don't want to wait forever to do the tags. So I did this one today, and we're going to have another tag Wednesday. And on Thursday, I think I'm going to be doing some recent reads. On Thursday, again, I probably will be out of town at the Rustic Vaughn Lodge where the internet is spotty. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get everything out on time. But if there's a couple days where I vanish, that's why. And then I'll just put all this stuff out when I get back. So anyway, thank you for stopping by once again at Stately Vaughn Manor. I will see you next time. Bye, guys.